we know that even if we have different perceptions, we can be very respectful toward each other. We can trust, and we can also trust that we're going to get also as neutral as possible feedback from the other person.
When you have empathy, you're literally seeing the other perspective of somebody else's experience, because you're able to connect and understand that maybe you didn't go through that. So you're actually seeing something outside of yourself. So you're moving away from the perspective, but you're moving into the person's.
Welcome to the Alchemy of Success podcast.
Your podcast for career, personal, and consciousness expansion. I'm Pedro.
And I'm Anna. And today we're going to talk about a very excited topic. We're going to talk about our own perception of the world and how, by really learning to change our perspective, we can alchemize this part of our life stories that help us create just a tremendous, exciting success in our life in every single areas. And before we deep dive into this topic, Pedro will give you first an explanation. What is the difference between perspective and perception? So go on.
We're here going to define first what is perception and perspective. Perception is how I see the world, how I see the events based on my own experiences, based on my own emotions. So it's really my point of view. Perspective is a collective point of view. Like you've probably seen this video somewhere or maybe everywhere. There's a gentleman from the CIA, former CIA, and he says perspective is gathering all these extra data points, telling you exactly what you're really seeing because you have these different data points to assess from. So that's his definition of perspective. And it's no different than mine, but I see it a little bit more differently, where not only do you see other people's data points or opinions or perspectives of what they see, but collectively, you actually understand what the truth is. So that's really my expanded definition of perspective, is understanding the whole. If you understand the whole, then you're able to see it a little bit better, and you're able to understand what the truth is that you're looking from every single angle. And Anna, go ahead. Believe you have a great example to share with the viewers or the listeners.
Yeah, and that was an example that actually when I was doing a communication training, we were taught about. So similar like the CIA guy, where he explained how CIA was teaching them the difference between perspective and perception. So like more objective and subjective view, or the other way around. This communication training, there was an amazing example. Imagine yourself sitting on a table, and this table has like four sides, and there is a bottle and there is a glass, and the bottle is not transparent, and the glass is exactly at front of the bottle. From my perspective, sitting here, I'm saying I see a glass at front of the bottle. The person left to me will see, no, I see a glass right to the bottle. The person an opposite will see, I don't see any glass. There's only a bottle. And the person on the right side will say, no, I just see the glass on the left side next to the bottle. So all of you are wrong. So that is how often communication happens in daily life. Everybody has, like Pedro said, their own filters, perceptions, depending on where they're staying, what are our limiting beliefs or experiences in our life, our stories. And from our point of view, we see something and we say that's the only truth. And the perspective is actually the capability of me standing up from my seat, going on the left side and sitting and say, oh, from this perspective, from this viewpoint, actually the glass is right to the bottle. Oh, let me change the other seat. Oh, this perspective has also a valid point of view. Let me change the other view. And that gathering, like Pedro said, of data points, can the perspective of the other people have a valid point from their point of view. And when we gather it all together, we actually and put it together and have an open communication and conversation, we can find out that everybody is right and kind of everybody is wrong. So it's this paradigm by understanding that the perception is right from my point of view and yet wrong from an observer point of view. So now you're going to ask maybe yourself, okay, how can I use this knowledge and the difference between perception and perspective to actually alchemize the parts of my story that I maybe don't like so much, or the way how I react on things that happens? And that is a very good question. And Pedro, maybe you can go on this and put from your perspective. By gathering so much different data points objectively, what was your personal experience? What changed in your life in different areas when you realized that you have your own perception, and when you started changing your perspective, how you see the world?
So I don't know if a great example comes to mind right now, but I tell you how it could influence a trait that we all have. And it's a feminine trait, but we all have it. And that's empathy. And here's what I mean. When you have empathy, you're literally seeing the other perspective of somebody else's experience, because you're able to connect and understand that maybe you didn't go through that. So you're actually seeing something outside of yourself. You're moving away from the perception, but you're moving towards the person's perspective. Because when you have empathy, you try to actually understand what they've seen, what they understand might be different from you, but you are still showing compassion and allowing them to be where they need to be and process what they need to process.
And how often this stop us in expanding and creating success, because very often we tell ourselves stories based on perception, that when we start gathering the objective information, we can see that there is like infinite way of changing the view. And Pedro, how often maybe you have experienced, maybe yourself, or not often, but to say, I'm pretty sure that you had a situation where you doubt yourself, and there was someone looking you from outside, experiencing your capability, your knowledge, your intelligence, and saying, Pedro, you can do this and this and this. And you say, no, I'm not pretty sure that this area I'm good enough. And the people experiencing from outside say, oh yeah, but you're going on this way and this way and this way. Sometimes we're way judgmental with ourselves than the environment.
I don't remember that kind of experience to that degree, but
that's maybe me.
Yeah, I think it's probably more. Yeah,
I experience this very often. So yeah, that you see again, that is my perception.
Yeah,
with my experience, thinking that maybe you have experienced something similar.
Maybe I have, but at this very point, Anna, I can't. It doesn't come into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to share or add on to what you explained in regards to how important obtaining perception is. I want you guys to, if you're listening or seeing this video or whatever method you're using, when you actually start changing your perception to perspective, it opens up your world beyond what you can imagine. And it opens up the world to be actually a little bit of a better place for yourself, but actually for everybody else. Because when you start understanding perspectives of many different situations in your life, you're becoming more at peace. There's going to be less conflict. There's going to be more harmony, less judgment. So therefore, you're going to be able to move even quicker, faster, and further, because you don't have to deal with those external factors and internal factors of your own judgment, whether you don't agree or disagree with the person's opinion. Because we're starting to actually start segregating and labeling our own experience with what we saw, and then what the other person saw. If they didn't agree with that, then guess what usually happens? It's a discussion. Discussion could lead to conflict. Am I right on that? That could be the possibility? Yes. Okay. So changing your perspective, understanding different angles of things, allows you to be happier, to be honest with you. And how can you alchemize anything if you're completely not in resonance and completely off? You feel off. Whether there's anger, sadness, you feel judged maybe because you spoke out loud your point of view of what you saw. Somebody spoke back to you and kind of threw you off. So when you do that, you expand your mind, you expand your consciousness to understand other people's own experiences. Then, and I believe, and only then, can you actually see the truth that's in front of you. Don't listen to everything that's going in because you're like I said, you judge from your experiences, your emotions. No, understand everything, and then you can actually make a conscious decision of how you want to go ahead and proceed with whatever event, whatever decision you need to make. And that is unbiased because you removed yourself from the equation because you want to see everything from the outside and the inside. And here's a beautiful thing that people don't realize. When you do that, you see yourself in everybody's plight. You see yourself in everybody's experience. You see yourself in so many different aspects. And because you start seeing yourself that way, your mind and your heart expands automatically, and you can apply it in business. You can apply it in relationships. You can apply it in every aspect of your life. So understand other people's perspective to understand your own perspective of how amazing and expansive you actually are as well as an individual. That's why it's so powerful for me, the perspective, and why I make it a point. And Anna, I think, knows this about me already because we've been hanging out for a bit now. I try to understand her point. And I try to understand anybody's point because I try to put myself in her shoes. And I think I gave this example when she was focusing on launching her project. It's an amazing project, by the way, guys. You guys definitely need to check it out. She's amazing. So really, and I knew that because I put myself in her shoes. She didn't have to tell me. Because I was trying to understand her perspective of what she needs to focus on. And we could move it a couple of days, the podcast, because we're recording constantly. It's okay. But I put myself in her perspective. What's really important to her, because now I know her as a friend. And she doesn't even need to tell me anything. She doesn't. I'm able to go ahead and offer it. And look, that brought a little bit of peace more into her, a little bit more. I don't have to worry about my partner. I have to deliver something. No, she was a little bit more chilled. Am I right, Anna, or am I off?
Yeah, definitely. and what you're explaining, and I like to, because you say it, but I like to underline it.
Mm-hmm.
This, when we embody this capability or this trait of being able to change perspective, see through different lenses, not just through our filter, that makes us a very attractive people. Because people stop feeling judged around us. They feel understood. They feel seen. They feel like I can share my perception of something and we can have a valuable on eye to eye, even a discussion. It could be a discussion of a different point of view, but on a respectful way. So that means we know that even if we have different perceptions, we can be very respectful toward each other. We can trust, and we can also trust that we're going to get also as neutral as possible feedback from the other person that gonna try to put themselves in our shoes before giving us a feedback. And this is a leadership skill, like I'll say maybe number one, because as a leader, we work with so many people, and as often as we can step into a different shoes, as better objective truth we are seeing. And let me tell you something. There will be always sometimes an angle that we cannot see because there is like 360-degree perspective. So if we have 10 people, we have 10 different views. Where we have 100, we have 100 different. So there will be always this small blind spot, but as many data points we can gather, like Pedro said, that he learned from this CIA guy, how CIA been teach to gather as many, viewpoints as possible, more help us to have a relationship that are in such a higher level of, commitment, and also such a higher level of trust. And it doesn't matter whether it's your business partner, whether it's your partner in love, whether it's your connection with your child or children, whether it's your boss, or doesn't matter. It's applicable on every single relationship. Because I'll share you something. I wasn't able for a long time in my life to change the perspective. I wasn't willing. And that is where we have unhealed experiences in our life. And that was before I went on this more of personal development point of view, expansion of consciousness. Sometimes I was willing, but when I was very emotionally triggered, and that was something that Pedro was talking about in the last episode, where we were talking about the observer, and when we get emotionally triggered in a conversation, how we suddenly stop listening actively, and instead we start engaging with our own trigger, with our own emotion. And because I'm a very emotional person and also very empathic person, when I feel judged, I used to kind of stop listening and really engaging with this emotion, and then just staying to react, not to respond, but really to react from this emotion, from this trigger. And I know sometimes that led to very heated discussion with my partner. Sometimes I yell at my child because I just went on his childhood level instead of being able to keep a little more adult perspective in this moment, and I knew it in this moment. I knew it, but yet my emotion take over my rational thinking. And instead of like, okay, just let me pause and just let me check whether there is another perspective on this view, I just engage with my perception, and it's like, boom. So if you want to create a successful life on each and every area of in each and every area, that is like, I'll say, for me, that changed everything. It was a game changer. Mm. Especially if you're very emotional like me. I think men are more rational. It's a little easier to disengage from the emotion, but women, in my experience, at least, the women that I encounter in my experience, we jump quicker on the emotional part, especially if we kind of feel connected to the person we were talking, or to the topic, if it's like our baby project or whatever, and suddenly we get triggered. And depending on in which part of our cycle we are, we have also different how to say, boundaries or level where our emotion just swipe out. I don't know whether Pedro, you can, what is your experience from more like man-centric view? But I can tell depending on where I am on my cycle, oh God, could be really different. And I need to be aware and to communicate it. Now I communicated with my partner to say, oh, be aware. I could be a little more not so grounded as usual in this period. Please bear with me.
No, it's I guess we're bred to just be as logical as we can be around anything, and make sure that we don't have our emotions embedded into our decisions that we make, because otherwise it would not be a good decision for the company. So we're taught to make sure that it's a very factual, understood, well thought out, strategic decision to the best of our ability, of course, and try to leave the emotions, because usually emotions will get you in trouble sometimes. There's a fine line between passion and really emotional. Passion, I love passion. I absolutely love passion. And you could definitely use that as a motivating factor to excel in what you do. And I love people that are passionate. I would consider myself a passionate person. And if something I believe in, something I show that passion. But I make sure that obviously in the end, that the decisions in the end that are made is making sure that it's the right one. So yeah.
Yeah, and think that makes a little difference, especially here. So that's why it's so beautiful to, like you said, on the one side, to have the empathy, to put yourself into the shoes of the others, what is more feminine traits. And on the other side, to have this possibility, or this, how to say, capability where you can just lower your emotional state and just look at the different facts and figures and get it together and get more wider perspective. So these both are like working together in a very symbiotic way. And that's the beauty when we can start understanding that all of us, we have the both, the feminine and the masculine traits within us, and to start balancing them and to see, okay, where can I lean more onto this one, and in which area I should lean more into this one, or how to let them dance together. That is, I think, like the art of starting understanding ourselves, and starting definitely seeing the world differently, and understanding that everybody is on their path of expansion and development, and everyone has a different, how to say, level of conscious awareness of when we are wearing our filter glasses and when we are not wearing them. Because now, as we both are more aware, when we see someone acting of their very filter way of perception, we can just take it, listen to it without taking it too personally. And then we will be able to reflect it back into a way less emotional way, and just say, hey, did you really mean it like that and that? How you maybe say it. So just by mirroring it back, what we understood, and that will help to avoid a lot of conflicts. That will help avoid everything, all the conflicts on the world. Because we see so much conflicts currently because people want to be misunderstood. I have the feeling that nowadays we have more and more people that just are inside willing to be misunderstood so they can jump on a conflict. At least what I'm seeing on social media, on the news, and so on. I have just a feeling that we have this need to be misunderstood so we can go in a conflict.
And that's true, Anna. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's why to be edgy in social media gets you clicks and views. Actually, we were talking about this, remember? To be edgy, to say something outlandish and just be out there, you're trying to build this perception of like, look what I'm saying, so you could gather more attention. Instead of being authentic because you understand things a little bit better, it's just, yeah, that just creates more conflict because it attracts more attention. It's sad, but that's our society nowadays.
And I still believe that could be the one perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think the other perspective that I believe you and I are experiencing, that a lot of people are starting to get more aware of this mentality and willing to expand more on first themselves. So like personal development, expanding their view, understanding their emotions, understanding their thoughts, you know, how like, experiences from the past are triggering, thoughts in our mind, and they're triggering emotion, and the emotion are creating the reaction, and trying to learn to reprogram that. That's why more people are going to coaching, going to hypnosis, going to different mentors and, programs. And this industry is growing so strongly because a lot of people are starting to understand, okay, maybe the way how I perceive the world is not the only way how to be seen. Maybe there is another perspective, and how by changing the perspective can help me change the perspective. And for example, one of the areas that I went and still go more in is to change the way how I see money. Because we grow with beliefs, set of beliefs based on our environment, where we grow up. So how I see money has been handled in my family, in my environment, in my society, in my country. And now by me starting seeing that there is a different perspective on the topic of money, and then to check with me, does my perception help me grow and expand? Or is there another perspective that by switching it, it can help me more to change my story and alchemize this story to the point that help me create a financial success that exceed my expectation that I thought I have from where I've came from. And this is how you can use this, because we can stop engaging ourselves with our old way of telling our story. Oh, poor me. I come from this small country. Oh, poor me. I grow up in a family that they don't have an entrepreneurship skills. Oh, poor me. You know, that could be the one part of the story, and I can stick with it, and I'm going to find people to engage with this story, this victimhood story. But do I want to be the victim, or do I want to be the victory? You know? And that's something you can choose every single moment. We can just choose, okay, what do I want to believe? Do I want to believe the negative point of view, or can I find a positive point of view that can help me alchemize? And alchemy is just taking this and turning it into gold. So taking all the shitty story and seeing the value, the wisdom of it by changing perspective, by changing your perception and gathering data, and then picking this perspective that helps you, that you like. That is why we're doing it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because then you can pick up the point of view you like most that will serve you. To give you maybe an example about changing perception to the perspective as a mom, the way how I see myself currently as a mom and how I interact with my child has been drastically changed as the way how I was as a young mom. And not just because of the experience, that also, but also because back there I had my view, what does it mean to be a good mom, and everything that didn't align with this kind of view, when I experienced mom acting differently, I truly judged them because I thought my perception is the way how it should be. That's like a little like this kind of say filter ego driven way.
Mm-hmm.
And I also understood that part of my perception was the way how I grown up, how I experience my connection to my mom, to my grandma, where I was living many, many years with her. But what helped me changing really is when I start going on the personal development path, and when I started questioning whether all these beliefs that I had around good mom, or what sometimes society tells us what a good mom should be. So the one tell you don't work too much. You should be there for your child. Otherwise you're not a good mom. Another one will tell you, yeah, but you need to go to work because otherwise you're not a good example. Especially if you have a daughter, you're not a good example. So you show to your daughter that, when you're a mom, you are staying at home. So everybody has a different perception. And my biggest struggle actually was me feeling guilty when I was taking care of myself, or when I was putting myself first and not putting my child first. That is where I felt a lot of guilt, like a huge amount of guilt. And what I learned is, and how I started shifting my perspective, because that is what it helps me now, is when I take care of myself, when I start seeing what makes me happy, what makes me more balanced, what makes me more in peace, that actually me being in peace started reflecting in our connection with my child. How the relationship between my child and myself improve, because I allow myself to feel grounded, to feel worthy of taking time for myself. I started subconsciously, I wasn't aware of this. I actually unconsciously teaching my child that it's good to put himself first. That is correct to take care of his well-being on the first part, because I was taught that is not good, that I first need to think of everybody else, that everybody feels good before I take care of myself. And that brought me to a place where I have some challenges also on a health level. And now when I started shifting this own perception and seeing that there is a different perspective, I picked this one that helped me, and I tested it kind of with my child, and I saw it helps him also. And we pick this viewpoint. So I can tell you, just by starting experimenting and checking what are another perspective on this topic will improve your inner world, and will improve then also as a reflection to how we feel in our relationship. 100%.
I believe
I
that.
can tell even 1 million.
Yeah, I believe that. It's really important. Thank you for that share, Anna.
You're welcome. So give you a small task.
So the task
to the next.
So the task is basically, yes, look into to your own memories, if you will, and see how you've grown. Anna gave a beautiful example of perspective, perception of when she was a younger mother and where she is today. Same thing. Do you see yourself differently from what you went through today, from what you felt and saw yourself the other time, whatever that event happened? And do that within the next 72 hours. Because if you don't see the difference, then go ahead and make a comment. Go ahead and post it. Say, hey, I don't see the difference. Can you help me understand something a little bit better? We're more than happy to help. We'll respond to your comments. But go ahead, just do the task and see what you get.
And maybe you're going to experience also within the next 72 hours some situation where you feel emotionally engaged, triggered.
Yes.
And try to take a step back and to go out of the subjective perception and try to find, to gather data and to create more objective perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for listening to us and see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below and don't forget to like and subscribe.